Hi, this is Glenn Friedman, CEO of Prager Metis International and host of Inside the C-Suite, The Journey. I want to thank NJBIA for their support, and today we're joined by my friend John Harmon of the African American Chamber of Commerce in New Jersey. How you doing, John?
Hey, Glenn, I'm just delighted to be here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I was wondering, John, when do you stop saying Happy New Year?
Hey, whenever you feel like it, especially, especially the folks you haven't spoken to coming into the new year. So this is our first time. So I thought it might be appropriate. It may start to taper off as we get close to the end of the month.
All right. Well, happy rest of the new year. How about that, John?
That
So,
works
so
for
John,
me.
you're an incredibly interesting guy, and what we like to talk about inside the C-suite, the journey, is how you get here. Let's talk a little bit about little John and his upbringing and what his journey was to the C-suite.
Well, I thank you again for the opportunity. I come from Trenton, New Jersey, capital city, the county seat, uh, the George Washington crossing to Delaware and all that. But I'm one of seven kids. First one to kind of go to college, and I went to Fairleigh Dickinson University, and upon graduating from there, I worked in banking in New York for New York and Philadelphia about 10 years. And I got involved with some folks around 1997 who were looking to launch a Chamber of Commerce as a vehicle to bring the Black community in Trenton at that time that was experiencing somewhat of a renaissance into the economic mainstream. And so, as a founding member, then subsequently, by default, 2 years later, I became president of the organization because the then president decided to um, put more time in with his business. And so I ran the Metropolitan Trenton African American Chamber for approximately 10 years. And then in 2007, I founded the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey. And this year we celebrate our 15th year.
Wow, that's some story. So John, we have a lot in common because believe it or not, I was the first person in my family to graduate college. And let's talk about education a minute. Would you be here without that education?
The short answer is no. And the thing that you just shared is we have a lot in common. And I think that gets lost sometimes when people from different communities, different ethnic backgrounds don't have any association or cross pollination. And then once we have a chat like today, we realize that, hey, our story probably started in the same place.
You mean when you were a kid, you would sit around the table and have dinner, and you guys would talk about how you were going to be a CEO someday, right?
Well, I don't think that was my conversation. That might have been yours. My my conversation was, is there another extra biscuit for me, an extra piece of chicken? But I started initially. I wanted to be a mechanic. I wanted to work on trucks, and I did that and cars upon graduating high school. So I kind of stumbled into college, and as I said at the forefront, no one in my family was a college grad. My parents didn't finish high school. So our conversations around the dinner table and our network was probably a little different from yours and others.
Well, believe it or not, we've got something else in common because this was not contemplated around my dinner table. And plus, probably there was a lot too much screaming going on to imbibe what it took to be the CEO. So tell me, how much of it is on the job training and how much of it, is John and who John is?
Well, I mentioned, around 2007, I founded this organization, but 2003 up until that time, and we didn't get going in earnest until, late 2009. So a lot of it was on the job training in terms of, researching what capitalism, free enterprise was all about, getting connected with the U.S. Chamber around 2001 and the National Black Chamber around 2001, and working with a number of, or networking with a number of regional chambers in Trenton and also in Princeton and other areas. So I became kind of a student, if you will, of the chamber business and business in general. And I didn't mention that, I worked I established my own business in 1989. So I ran a transportation company for 16 years. So that helped me also in I guess my pathway to where I am currently.
So before we get a little bit into capitalism, tell me about your mistakes. How much do you learn from your mistakes?
Well, I think I learned a lot from my mistakes. And I think one, acknowledging that you made a mistake, and also two, acknowledging what you don't know. I think that has been a significant part of my personal development and my understanding business today and being able to help businesses today, because I can relate to some of the struggles and some of the challenges, but also having the commitment to being successful. So you got to stay with it.
Yep. That's what kept me up at night, playing that tape over and over again on those mistakes. And
absolutely.
Boy, I'll tell you can learn an awful lot. So let's get into a subject that's near and dear to both of us. We both are capitalists. We both believe in capitalism. And what we really, we've talked about this, but it's like it almost hasn't been unlocked or unleashed, sort of capitalism in the Black community. And you want to take this country by storm, you give the Black community capitalism, and I'll tell you what, I know they're going to run with it. So tell me what's been lacking, or what hasn't, how that secret gets buried or doesn't come to the forefront of the Black community.
Well, this conversation about capitalism, free enterprise, and socialism has been politicized by certain groups for political gain. And but when I came up in Trenton, there were a number of entrepreneurs on every corner in the city of Trenton. So if you look at when I grew up there, I was born in 1960. So Trenton is a city of about almost 90,000 people. It was probably a little more at that time. And today it's north of 50% Black, but on pretty much every corner, there were Black owners of stores, grocery stores. Some folks would say convenience stores today, or the liquor stores, the bars, the takeout restaurants were all Black owned in Trenton. The vendors, that some of the little flea markets that occurred, guys would sell fruit and produce on the corners. So that's the environment I grew up in. My dad, notwithstanding his limited education, he was an entrepreneur. He and his father migrated here from Virginia. They ran there was a place in Robbinsville called FH Valsing, and they ran 3 shifts. It was a potato processing operation. And then my dad owned trucks to deliver, and they were recruiting people to come work there, and folks started businesses. So I don't know where that narrative got lost within the Black community, but it's definitely one in which there's a lot of debate today. Consumer-wise, we spend $1.4 trillion annually in the United States, and is projected by 2024, we will be at 1.8 trillion in annual consumer spend. So if those dollars got recycled into Black businesses at a 50 or 60% clip, that could be transformational.
That's interesting. And so I can only tell you, I plead guilty to being the CEO of an accounting firm, and we need people. And so when I look back at my career, and I went to school in Newark, there weren't really any blacks or African Americans studying accounting, let alone business administration. So tell me how we attract those folks, or we teach those kids to get into those types of programs so that we can support this notion of black owned businesses and capitalism. You know, John Harmon went and studied business administration in college. He didn't study mechanics. He already did that. And by the way, I see a sign on every corner. There are mechanics needed. So if this fails for you, you got a shot. You don't have to go hungry.
No, absolutely. I mean, so I think for me, it starts with one, seeing yourself in the narrative. You talked about conversations that might have been had at your dinner table, and the people that were within your community, within your network. And so seeing those individuals, you may had aspirations to be that type of person. And so I would say, and so in my community, seeing black men and women in suits talking about business, we have to do more of that. So I was thinking, as we were talking earlier, when I grew up in Trenton, they were insurance salesmen, people coming into your house in suits trying to sell insurance, or vacuum cleaners, or what have you. These were all entrepreneurs. The guy who ran the auto detail shop was an entrepreneur. The gas station down at the end of the block, or repair shop, these were all entrepreneurs. But getting more into that professional sector, you talk about accountants, lawyers. So you run the gamut. I think through a relationship with the chamber, we could share this conversation and get folks to understand that, one, someone with a 4-year education versus none is, over their lifetime, is going to make about $1 million more versus someone without a degree. So that's one box we can check off. But getting them to understand that, going into professions of business, accounting and auditing, into, there's a whole, finance. There are a number of opportunities, banking, that they could pursue, wherein that they would be on a trajectory, one, to afford themselves not only a better lifestyle for themselves, but for their families, and on a path to potentially create some generational wealth.
That's interesting because, I sit on some boards and I show up at those board meetings, and frankly, I'm always disappointed because almost everybody in the meeting looks like me, and they're all tripping over themselves along with the rest of corporate America, fighting over the small population of African Americans that everybody wants to get on their board, right? Or everybody wants to bring into their organization. And so the question is, how do you expand that population, right? And for me, everybody wants everything now, right? We live in a very now society. Why can't there be a great plan that says, you know what, do the math, right? If you go into the grammar schools and you go in before high school and you start to teach the things you're talking about, right? And you start to demonstrate the opportunity, and you put programs in place, not for the front end or the back end. I don't know whether it's the front or the back, but if you start with those kids today and you touch X amount of children, how many of those children will succeed and grow into good capitalists, if you will? And I mean, there's got to be some science behind that. There's got to be some math that some brilliant person could do, but it's an investment in the future. And today, people don't want to roll it back and invest in the future. They just want to start at the back end and all fight over the scraps, if you will. And I'll probably get yelled at for saying that. But to me, I heard a saying on a TV show of all things that I was listening to the other day, and they basically said, we need to plant trees, but I won't be around to enjoy the shade. And so the question is, how do we go? And look at how long it takes to plant a tree, right? So why can't we go down to those grammar schools and really start to plant those trees? And why is there no political will to do that? Why is it always the simple, short answer?
Well, I think you're asking all the right questions. So if you use Major League Baseball as an example, they now have set up shop in the Dominican Republic, shop in Venezuela, where they have given these young athletes good fields to play on, the training to kind of nurture the talent, and then they recruit them. So they have a farm system, a pipeline to bring them in to keep the game playing at a high level and competitive. We should have the same strategy as it relates to our high schools today. So I gave the example of seeing yourselves in the narrative. Many young people, particularly in urban settings, they see the high flying basketball players shooting the 3-point shot. They see entertainers living this glamorous lifestyle. And so they have the desire to do the same, but they can do this and do that because playing ball, you can get hurt the first day you come on the court in your career is short, but you still need a good education and a good second option when you either fail because of an injury or your career is short for some reason. So I know here at the chamber we have a leadership program, and Enterprise Rent a Car has sponsored the program in Patterson. So we're teaching young men and women to be a little more career focused. Johnson and Johnson has given us resources to roll out another chapter in New Brunswick. So we're working with the district now to stand that up. So we're taking kind of a direction from you, if you will, to help this next generation be in a better position to transition and integrate into this free enterprise system. And hopefully they'll have a better life than I had coming up, as well as you.
Well, I got to say, to me, the single most important thing that John's organization can and will do is bring up young people. And that, frankly, is what will keep capitalism going. And I know of no system that has brought more people out of poverty than capitalism in the world. And so I'm a big proponent of capitalism. And I think you're not looking at, but you're hearing two people that, but for capitalism, probably wouldn't be living the way we're living. And
No,
well,
absolutely.
John's living better, but other than that, he dresses better than I dress. So
Well, that's a
listen,
choice.
I want to thank John for being here today. I want to thank him for the good work he's doing. I would love it if everybody listening to this can just really be supportive of his organization and NJBIA. And I want to thank you all for being here today. Thank you all.
Thank you, my friend.